right, it's the weekly feed. I'm Kyle Meredith, and sitting next to me, the one and only Wayne Coyne from the Flaming
Hello,
Lips.
hello everybody. Hello, Kyle.
It is great to have you here in Louisville. Forecast of 2013.
But you should say, yeah.
On the mighty Ohio River.
Yeah.
The messy Ohio River.
Yeah, it doesn't usually look like that, does it?
It takes a flood to bring in the nastiness, to bring in the ugliness.
Well, it looks bad, but it's mostly just a bunch of limbs and wood. It's not a horrible amount of trash.
It doesn't have the legendariness of like the Mississippi, but we're proud of it.
Well, I thought it was the Mississippi. It's so big. Yeah. But there's a family of ducks right down there. There's some little babies and stuff, so it's not as hazardous as it may look.
Yeah, they're living fine.
They are.
They're living fine.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into 2013 here. Well, heck, I mean the whole thing. I think you guys have one of the amazing careers of consistency.
Oh, I see. Well, thank you.
You don't.
Maybe we should stop. I know we think about that all the time. Of like,
I don't know that you have to. That's not really a criticism or anything. But I don't know the way things go. Bands take off a second, but it doesn't seem like you guys ever do. And I don't know. It feels like you almost have to be a madman to pull off this kind of lifestyle. Well,
thank you for saying that. I think there is something too when you get down. When you talk to artists, and I don't mean necessarily that bands aren't artists, but the way that artists work is a lot, unfortunately, a lot of it's just like every day you get up and do this thing. Sure. And that's how...
But it's something you would do anyway.
It is. But people think that... They wrongly think that you sit around and wait for some inspiration and then you go and do it, But you can't, there's oxygen right there. But you just got to get up and do your thing all the time.
Right.
And then I think if something happens, if the luck hits you, then you can really roll with it. And part of it is I think I'm just really obsessed, because I'm not doing music all the time.
Sure. No, you've got all the projects,
all kinds of stuff,
right.
And people are in my studio all the time, and I'm kind of producing and all that sort of stuff, and I love all that. So, and the way that we play, we kind of are always playing, but we're never playing for like 6 months in a row.
Right.
Like some groups will go out and they'll play for forever, and then they'll take forever off. And I don't know, about 5 years ago, we stopped doing that just because it became, Stephen has a couple of kids that are really still pretty little, and so we decided that we would just treat it like we work down the street at Target or McDonald's or something.
After 3 decades, of doing that and an amount of hits, I'm not sure you have to anymore either.
Well, I think for some people it makes a lot of sense because they go out and they play everywhere, and then you don't see them for a couple of years. Or it's just the way you get the machine geared up. There's a lot of equipment and a lot of guys and a lot of stuff that has to be, taken around. But I think we're just lucky that as we went, we own all the stuff. We have our own big warehouse, and I think it's just luck that it's worked out that we're kind of like a family circus. We go out and do the thing when we want to, as opposed to the demand of the touring schedule. But I think that sort of schedule sometimes really can defeat groups. Because it's just a long commitment, and it's not always that much fun, and people get sick, and there's drugs and things involved, and so it can be a struggle.
I think bands are learning that too. You mentioned something a minute ago, kind of like the way a fan's perception of you guys would be, and there's something about that too, because they do have these expectations of what you're doing and who you are and what all this is, and there's got to be a point where I guess it's the performer versus your own person. You're the front man.
I don't think so. For me, it's all the same. It's not. I don't really go up there or even sit here with you and think, well, I've got to be this dude. I'm just.
So there's never an act that ever goes into it. You're a creative person on top of it. So
I think if you're lucky, the things that you're doing and the person you are and all that, they are the same thing, and I think that's why it's this. I don't want to say it's not a big deal, but this is just what we do.
Sure. I guess it's the theatrics of the whole rock star, and
I know what people mean. I've been around people who, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but there's a air of pretending in the whole thing, or there's image about it, but I don't really think we are about that anymore.
I guess Bowie comes to mind a little bit on that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
He kind of has that thing, and that actually brings up another fine point. Once again, 3 decades in, you're going into the 4th decade as the Flaming Lips. You know, I think
just beginning the fourth decade.
Well, I think most artists, you know, at some point you'll lose that creative streak, and you know, and Bowie comes to mind as something that doesn't. Whereas the Stones, you know, oh, you want a new song? We're just going to write "Start Me Up One More Time" differently, and you guys have bypassed that entirely.
Right. I think in defense of anybody out there, I mean, I'm sure they're just doing what they like, and I think everybody's entitled at some point to say, you know. Hi. All right. You know, I mean, that's what I'm doing. I'm not doing it because I think it's making the world a better place or it's progressing the world of ideas along. I'm just doing it because I want to. Sure. And I think I'm hoping that's what everybody does. Yeah. And especially someone like a Mick Jagger or Keith Richards. I mean, I hope that they get up when they're 70 years old and say, I still like playing music, and what does it matter? And so I don't think what we're doing is different from what they're doing. They're probably doing what they like, same way we are, you know.
Well,
but I think we're really lucky that we do have this curiosity about what is out there. What do we want to do?
Well, you don't have to do the same thing over and over.
But I think
you stayed away from it.
I think we're lucky that the thing that we've never been mega successful, and so I can understand where it would be very tempting for any group if someone came up and said, the thing that you do it so well that you can make $1 million a week doing it, but if you change you might not make shit, and you would probably say, well, gee,
that $1 million sounds nice.
Yeah, I could be a little unsatisfied and make $1 million, and so I mean, and those aren't things you could judge before it happens. So for us, we've done things here and there where we thought, well, we'll take the money as opposed to doing what we want, and it was just so horribly unsatisfying that we wouldn't do it again. But no one has come up and said we'll give you $1 million either.
Sure.
So we'll see.
Well, The Terror is a great example. The Terror, the brand new record of you guys really changing on a dime whenever you want to. I mean, it kind of started with the record before this too, but I think every review I read, it seems like everyone's kind of crutching on one thing with The Terror and saying it's a dark record.
Well, yeah, and I can understand
because you're the one in it. You're the one who's living the record. You're the one who's singing the record. Do you see it like that?
Well, I think we discovered a couple of different ways of recording. We have this little synthesizer that we got from Sean Lennon. We were at his studio and we started playing around with it. And I think part of its appeal, this little synthesizer, it's a really old synthesizer, is that you play notes, and accompanying the notes are these little tritone electronic, sort of after effects. And for musicians, this is it's beautiful because a lot of times nowadays it's easy to get pure notes. Everything's already in tune. You can just hit things, and part of your brain really loves when the world is in harmony.
Sure.
That's why harmony even exists. It's like, oh, that goes so well with this.
This is the mathematics of songwriting, the science of songwriting.
Well, or just that you when you hear it, you like it.
Sure, right.
You know what I mean? But part of what this synthesizer would keep telling us is that, this is working on one musical level, but on another musical level, it wasn't working at all. But it really appealed to us, and I think it was affecting, whatever part of our brain was not wanting perfect harmonies or whatever, and it didn't make us write the songs, but it urged us to write these types of songs that I think we're dealing with that kind of gray ambiguity of the way your life really is.
Sure.
And I think that's why people relate to it so much, because, I mean, I'm not putting it down, but
it's a beautiful record. Well, in the oddest sort of way.
Right. I mean, we would say that ourselves.
It's like
a Kubrick film. Well, thank you. Yeah.
It's like a Kubrick film.
We'd say it's like our most depressing but most triumphant record I think we've done.
Yeah.
Because it's not cartoon-like in its reach. It's not saying, oh, everything's going to be beautiful forever. It's really saying, beauty is here and pain is here, and But I don't want people to think that our lives had gotten so dark and so painful. I think it's just there's an urge to make this kind of music when those sounds happen, and we hadn't really done music. We hadn't really embraced that much of that type of music, and I think we wanted to. We like it.
Well, there's something about that too, because when a fan listens to the record, there's a big character study that goes along with that. This is how we get to know you. This is how we get to know you.
Well, exactly, yeah.
And when it's, you know, whether it's the lyrics are autobiographical and everything,
yeah.
there becomes that line where you're saying, this is how much I want to let out there before it just becomes gossip.
Well, I don't think of it like that. I mean, I'm sure if I was Beyonce or someone like that, there could be a lot more of that going on. But I don't think of it like that. I think the best thing I can do is just to be completely me and be, as you know, be honest or whatever that is. Because sometimes, you know, you're coming up with a song or coming up with lyrics, and you don't really know what the fuck you're gonna say. Right. I mean, there is no, you don't sit there and know everything you're gonna do and write it down. You just will say something that we say that it comes, you know, it sort of squirts out of your subconscious or whatever. But on the other side of that, these things squirt out of you, and you still get a chance to choose whether you're going to keep it or dismiss it. And there's a really great line on the record, and I say great because I just sort of, I didn't really think of it, it just sort of happened, where it says we don't control the controls. And part of that is, I believe it's true for my life, that there's, you know, an element of what I do is that I feel like I should control it, because if I control it, it'll go this way and it'll go that way. But then I also know that if I control it, it becomes virtually the same thing every time, because I'm not really aware of all the little nuances of what I do. So I don't want to have control, because there's no surprises left. There's no new path, you know. So it's a quagmire, you know. You, like all artists, I'm probably a dictator at heart, and I want to rule the world.
But it's your art, you know.
Well, it starts out that way, but then I think sometimes our most beautiful stuff that we do is that we see things in the world and make it our art, and that's probably more true for what we want now. I think in the beginning, when you have no control, you think you want it all, and then when you like the way our life works now, when you can control it all, you don't really want to. Kyle, what am I going to do?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
well, it is a great new act for the Flaming Lips. It's even almost like amnesia, because, you know, like we recognize the face, it kind of sounds the same, but there's nothing else about it that's real. And for, you know, for a fan listening to you guys, that's important. Like something new to feed on.
Well, I think for our fans, I wouldn't say for all groups. I think some groups, if they went too radical, would probably lose everybody. Yeah. You know, but I think our fans, most of them are artists themselves. They're people who are in bands themselves. They're making music. They're involved in some thing about art and music. And yeah, I think what it says to them is like, you know, maybe someday you're going to want to change. Yeah. And you want to see that there's examples of people out there that said, they did it, I can do it. And yes, it's scary, and you don't really know if it's going to work. I still don't know if what we're doing now works, or if it doesn't work.
It'd be written about in the rock history books.
Well, thank you.
Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror, every lyric coming into this.
Well, thank you,
Wayne. It has been so awesome.
Well, thank you. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Everywhere this whole thing goes, we're going to be on board. So.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you. Yeah. And let's hope it worked out that the river didn't rise up.
Wash us away.